You sound excited.
This one makes me angry. Hello and welcome to Doc to Me. I'm Heather.
And I'm Kathleen.
And this week we are covering I Love You, Now Die, the Commonwealth versus Michelle Carter. Not a fun one.
No, but I did watch it twice because it's crazy and you like miss stuff. So you like have to watch it again. And also, I kept telling my husband that it was P.S. I Love You, Now Die, which is like a mixture of like P.S. I Love You or whatever, and then like this, which is like not the same thing. So even when I went to search the documentary to watch it that very first time, I was like, P.S. I Love You. And then I was like, wrong movie. So don't make the same mistake that I did.
So this one was directed and produced by Aaron Lee Carr and had its world premiere at South by Southwest on March 9th, 2019. It aired in 2 parts on July 9th and 10th on HBO. Aaron Lee Carr also directed Mommy, Dead and Dearest, which we covered in episode 4. And this documentary is kind of chaotic.
Yes, it's a lot to unpack.
I try to cover these as they're presented, which can make me sound fucking hectic. This happened, and then this happened, and then we go back 2 years before this. Just warning you, I'm not having a manic episode. This is just how it's
really
presented.
is, yes. It's just all over the place.
We start off immediately having to read, so if you were making a snack while it was getting started, you'd miss this shit.
Yeah, it was definitely like one of those that like I couldn't watch in the background.
Yeah, because there's a lot of reading.
Yeah, like I watched it twice because it was like I felt like I missed things the first go through.
Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy fell in love in 2012. They lived an hour away from each other and met no more than 5 times, but they exchanged thousands of text messages over 2 years. This is their story.
Which also, like, I know that, like, you and I are both from that, like, you know, time period where, like, entire relationships could happen over the internet or whatever. But the fact that they, like, only met, like, 5 times and they were, like, so committed to each other, like, as boyfriend and girlfriend has me just thinking, like,
I just think
what a bunch of children.
They're not that far away from each other.
Yeah, it's an hour apart. Like,
if that, I think it's like 45 minutes. And they're old enough to drive.
They're old enough to drive.
Yes.
That is what makes me think that, like, their entire relationship wasn't, like...
Getting ahead of yourself.
Yes, okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to it.
July 12th, 2014 in Mattapoisett, Massachusetts.
Mattapoisett?
What a fucking mouthful.
I love Massachusetts, though.
And a lot of this story is reading text messages. Conrad, I love you so much. Michelle, I love you forever. Like, shut the fuck up.
Such a bunch of fucking, like, dumbass teenagers.
And then it just goes dark. Conrad, I'm in the worst pain right now. Like, it's unbearable. Michelle, I think it's time to do it now then. It's okay to be scared, and it's normal. I mean, you're about to die.
Which is so fucking dark. And I'm going to start this off by saying, like, I am 1,000% fully supportive of, like, assisted suicide.
Oh, yeah.
But only in certain cases. Like, if you are
terminal,
then absolutely I feel that, like, assisted suicide or, like, euthanasia is, like, 1,000% like that person's choice. But this was not one of those situations.
No.
Like, fuck that.
No.
Oh, it makes me so mad.
And then we get into news reports 3 years later announcing Michelle Carter is on trial for manslaughter because of text she sent to Conrad encouraging him to commit suicide. So we learned really quickly what this doc is going to be about.
And boy, is it.
July 13, 2014, Fairhaven, Massachusetts, a missing person alert for 18-year-old Conrad Roy is declared, which seems odd. Like, you would think an alert for a missing 18-year-old boy would just be ignored.
Yeah.
Or the fact that they even have an alert for...
Did you wait 24 hours, ma'am? Are you sure he didn't just run away?
Oh, he's white? Yeah, we'll put the alert out now. Like, it wasn't that long ago that trying to report a missing 8-year-old boy would have been like, I'll be back.
Yeah. Did you give it a couple hours? Did you call his friends?
Did you go outside, put your hand up above your eyes and look left to right?
Did you call his name and holler?
Conrad! I don't know why we're doing that accent. Like,
This is Massachusetts. It's not Georgia. It's Massachusetts.
We just always just go straight to that accent.
We're real Southern.
He was also in possession of his black truck, so he could be anywhere. Listening to the accents...
But it was his grandfather's too, right?
I don't recall.
I thought they said the police report, like, that it was his grandfather's. Registered.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was like, man, I hope he didn't off himself in his grandpa's truck. Like...
There could be worse places. But...
There could be, but still. Come on, man.
Don't worry, I can't do a Boston accent, so you're not going to be hearing it. But if we do a film that's like in Minnesota or Wisconsin, like...
So my dad is from Massachusetts, and like all of my dad's side of the family is from there. And so like I just remember at one point we were talking about moving there when I was a child, and my dad was just like, if you say y'all, they are going to mock you so hard. And then I have a friend from like New York, and he's like, you guys, or use guys or whatever. Use guys. And I'm like, why don't you just say y'all? Like,
I don't think I've ever said y'all.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just like real, like I have like...
We grew up 2 blocks apart. I don't know what you're about to say, but...
No, because like, so my mom's side of the family is like real hillbilly, like Southern. And then like my dad's side of the family were like Yankees. And so I've got like the weirdest like mix of like fucking like... I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know. I feel like my sister-in-law who's like, I feel like I'm like living in like the middle of the Pacific because it's like, she's like a mix of like all the different places she's lived. And it's like, I've never lived anywhere other than Texas, but I got a lot of influence, man.
I was in Illinois for a little bit, but came back. Didn't pick up an accent.
I wish I had an accent from anywhere other than here.
I want a Minnesota accent. Like, those are the best accents.
It would be amazing. Just
sit back, have a little pipe.
Don't you know? Oh.
Was that Drop Dead Gorgeous? The airport Hojo. So God damn it.
Anyway.
We've been drinking. The cops find the truck in a Kmart parking lot. God damn, that is that Boston accent.
Yeah, look at you.
Kmart parking lot with Conrad in the driver's seat. I didn't know Kmart was even around anymore. I mean, we haven't had one here in like 20 years, but
I know. And I see like people be like, "Oh, I got this like really cool thing from Kmart." And I'm like, "Where the
Blue
fuck
Light
is
special?"
I'm like, where the fuck is Kmart?
Last time I remember was that one in Carrollton.
Yeah, and I was like a fucking kid.
It was right next to the Taco Bueno.
Yes! We're getting an HEB though.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Kmart parking lot.
Professional. He left behind a journal filled with notes for his family and provided passwords to his laptop and phone, which will be very important later. Also very considerate.
Yeah, I was sitting there thinking, like, if I ever killed myself, because, like, let's be real. I was a teenager once, and I did, contemplate offing myself once or twice, and I've written notes. And I never would have, like, given any information towards, like, my private information. Like, fuck that. Like, even now, I'm 34 years old, and, like, I would not, like, if I died, if I die, please throw my phone in the ocean. I do not want my Google
now I
search.
Drive all the way down south to the ocean.
Yes.
Why are you giving me this?
You can dump it in a garbage disposal.
I can dump it?
You can dump it. I have been drinking. I am drunk. You can do whatever you want.
Bucket of water.
Yes, put it in a bucket. I do not want my shit getting out there. Like, I am serious. If you find my journals, if you find my phone, any of that shit after I am dead, please do not read it. I do not need all of my, like...
Twilight fan fiction, isn't it? You've been working on.
I have been working on Twilight fan fiction. And also all of my, like, Google searches where I'm trying to figure out how to spell a word.
Or trying to remember a case, and you're like, who is this girl with this? And...
Someone murdered. And, like, there have been so many searches like that. I'll never forget when, like, after I had my youngest, I was Google searching, like, diarrhea after, like, a diet of only Twizzlers.
Yeah, I think that's gonna happen.
And my husband saw, like, the search or whatever, and he was like, oh yeah, we may just have, like, a stomach bug. And I was like, son of a bitch. That's private.
Oh my god. So I also wonder why the cops decided to keep the phone. Like, you come upon a suicide and there's goodbye notes, so there's not really much of a question as to what happened.
Yeah, they even said it was weird themselves that, like, they looked into any of this.
They felt they should just keep the phone, charge it, because I said it was dead, and then go through the messages.
Yeah, it was a little weird because it seemed like a run-of-the-mill suicide. But then they were like, why would this normal, like, 18-year-old boy who has everything going for him, like, why would he kill himself? And it's like, well, first of all, that's like a
crime in this town that they're like...
Well, I mean, it's like poison. Poison.
Looking through his phone, they find a thread with Michelle Carter that's open, and it's pretty obvious what happened.
It was fun, yeah. I'd be like, I mean, they themselves are like,
I got 'em.
What the fuck?
Michelle, are you gonna do it now? Conrad, I just don't know how to leave them, you know? Michelle, say you're going to the store or something. You're overthinking. A suicide. You're overthinking a suicide.
Okay, but was I the only one who thought that, like, when he says I just don't know how to leave them, that he meant more than just, like, leaving them to go do it, but that he meant, like, I don't know how to leave them as in, like, dying?
I think it was more, I don't know how to, like, sneak out of the house without it being obvious.
I was reading too much in it.
Conrad, I know I'm overthinking. I've been overthinking for a while now. Michelle, I know. You just have to do it like you said. Not stopping him. Like, it's insane.
This makes me so angry. It makes me so angry.
So they quickly realize they should probably get into contact with the DA's office because the messages from her just get more and more aggressive. It's fucking sick. I have a history of suicide attempts and self-harm, and when you're going through that shit and those thoughts, you don't tell anyone because you don't want them to stop you. And for him to, like, tell somebody and she's okay with this?
Exactly. And that's my whole, like, mindset is, like, when I was in, like, these dark periods of time, like, I would write out my notes or whatever, but I wasn't telling people because, like, first of all, like, when you're telling people, it's kind of like a whole, like, you want them to stop you. Yeah. You want them to give you a reason to stay. And she literally, like, I love you so much. I love you forever. But, like, yeah, go ahead and fucking kill yourself. Yeah. Like, just what the fuck? Like, even if it was someone I didn't know and care about, I would still be like, you know, like, shit gets better. Like, there are things that you're going to have to look forward to. Like, you basically just have to live one day at a time and find something that, like, you're living for.
Yes.
Yeah, you find a reason. And, like, now my kids are my reason.
Mine was literally, I read a statistic where kids of people who kill themselves have a higher chance of suicide. That's literally all it took for me. And I was like, well, I can't do that because I don't want them to do that.
Dude, I, like, every day.
Just one simple thing is all you need.
Every day I have to make a conscious decision that, like, my life is worth moving forward with, and, like, maybe I'm not gonna, like, be some amazing person, but, like, fuck, you just have to, like, find something. And, like, the idea that, like, she loves him so much, but she can't give him a single reason to keep going.
Yeah. Like, all she had to do was just tell one person.
Seriously.
It's so ridiculous.
Seriously.
Yeah, this episode's gonna be dark. Let's go back to Stevie. We had fun with that. Nobody listened, but we had fun with that one.
Good old Stevie.
Yeah, this bitch is gross. So now they have to find out who this crazy bitch is. They travel to Wrexham, Massachusetts to interview her at her high school because she is a high school student. And they play the recording of the interview, which is her only on-record statement about the case, so it's incredibly important for them.
I like how she's like, you need to take my phone.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the worst thing you could tell a teenage girl. And the recording starts at 5:51 p.m. on October 2nd, which means it's almost 6 o'clock and she's still stuck at school.
Yeah, I was worried about that. Like, what's going on here?
I was like, that's a little bit of justice to inconvenience her. Also, I've got some questions. We started off in July and now it's October.
It took a long time to get
what
that
happened
warrant.
During those months? Like, when did they even look at the phone? Like, that was my question of how long had time passed before they even looked at this phone?
It's probably a while. Because they thought it was just a cut and dry suicide. Like, I mean,
like, what kind of investigation happened to get to this point? It seemed like quite a gap for something so obvious.
it kind of makes me think of like Only Murders in the Building when she's like, we didn't send the phone to.
Yeah, just something so simple.
Yeah. She's like, we didn't send the phone in to be looked at, so here it is.
So they ask her if she had contact with them that day, and she's like, I think so.
Like, how do you not remember listening to your boyfriend die?
Like, girl, you have to know why they're here after all this time. Like, they know already. So she admits that she knew he had been planning and had talked to him over the phone the night before. She said the phone hung up, and she didn't know what to do because she was just so scared for him. And then the cop does some smooth shit, asks her if she has her phone, and just if she could input her password. And once she does that, he lets her know they have a search warrant, and he's gonna take it.
I liked that. I mean,
and
just
now
like...
he knows the pin to get into the phone. It's just, yeah. Typical teenager is shocked and asks if she's gonna get it back, and he was like, yeah, eventually. He got you there. So now the state police are in possession and extract the contents of her phone. The download of her phone was 60,000 items. Like, the
honestly,
paperwork involved.
Honestly, I feel like that would be like my phone.
They take their share home for the night and each read about 1,000 messages, which, man, that's gotta be...
Also, it was like
a teenager's text
yeah, I was about to
messages.
say, like, to be like, you know, some 34-year-old man and you're like having to read through like some
ha
fucking...
ha ha, LOL.
Yeah, like...
God. Because it was a lot of ha ha ha.
Do you love me? LOL.
They come in the next morning and are in agreement that if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't be dead. And on February 5th, 2015, a grand jury indicted her for involuntary manslaughter. She is booked and released on bail the next day. I remember when this came out in the news, and it was bonkers.
Yes! It was, like, everywhere. People, like, it was, like, the biggest fucking news story.
It was just slowly more and more information, and then the text messages came out, and I remember reading those, and...
Yeah, it was insane. Like, this idea
chilling.
that, like... Oh, man, and her attorney... Man needs
Who always looks so confused.
That man needs to rethink his life.
Yeah, just sitting at work and reading over them on my lunch break, just absolutely sucked in. His aunt is interviewed saying, it's just not something that happens in your family. I was like, that's not something that happens to anybody's family.
Yeah, like what the
this
fuck?
sort of thing doesn't happen.
What's crazy is that, like, if this was, like, a bullying situation, like, if she was his bully and she was, like, pushing him, like, that would be, like, okay, that happens pretty frequently. But, like, his fucking girlfriend, the girl that he supposedly loves, she loves him. Like, they are committed to each other. She's, like, fucking talking about all this crazy shit. And she's pushing him to kill himself. Like, it is so fucking out there. Like, I have seen situations where, like, someone's like, you should fucking kill yourself. Because, like, they hate them. But, like, someone you love?
Well, there was even at one point, like, she also suffered from depression. We'll get into that. And he's like, well, we should do, like, Romeo and Juliet. And she's like, okay. And he's like, do you not remember what happens? And she goes, oh, yeah.
We're not going to fucking
We're not
die.
doing that.
Yeah.
Like,
just
oh, you're fine with him. Yeah, she's just... So yeah, it's for a high school girl to be the one behind it. Fucking psycho. And then fucking Nancy Grace.
I loved her.
Fancy Nancy to you, ma'am. I love when she looked at the picture of Michelle and was like,
she's like,
what
what's
is that
sour
puss on her face?
Yes. She's like, no, go back.
I love Nancy.
That was the only moment where I was like, yeah, okay, Nancy Grace.
She is just so sassy.
What is that puss on her face?
What is that puss on her face? It's just the way she talks. Like,
what is that puss on her face?
That hair, man. When I die, can you make sure I have that hair?
I'm gonna give you a whole fucking bouffant. Like, we're gonna get like.
I want the velour tracksuit. I want everything. June 13th, 2014, 1 month before Conrad's death, we're seeing, I guess, his video diary.
Which is interesting. Like,
well, we had live journal and stuff. This is.
Yeah.
I gotta remember how old we are.
Live journal was like, at least like we weren't like on camera talking about like, cause that, I don't know, I just get like secondhand embarrassment from that shit.
He's talking out his problems, and obviously we have no idea just like what exactly he's going through or what's in his mind, but
I feel like he was optimistic.
Like he's handling it all.
Yeah, like this whole video thing seemed very like he was trying,
coming to terms with his depression and accepting it.
And trying to find ways to, like, move through it. Yeah. Like, he seemed optimistic.
Like, psyching himself up. To, like,
yeah. You know, his whole, like, I just need to make a conscious effort to, like, talk more. Yes. And, like, put myself out there.
Like, here's what I need to do to get my gears going again. And get stuff done. Yeah.
Yeah. He seemed like he was, you know, he had shit going for him. Like, he was like, okay, like, this is bad. But, like, this is what I need to do.
Yeah. He was doing well enough that he got his captain's license, which I didn't know you could get, like, at 18. That seems young.
Yeah, and his grandfather.
And he was wanting to learn more about the family business, which I think was, like...
salvaging?
Yeah. Boat salvaging, I don't know what you call it.
Yeah. So I've got an uncle that's, like, a lobsterman in Massachusetts, and that's, like, the extent of my boat knowledge.
My dad... caught shrimp, I think, in Alaska. That's all I know.
I think, yeah, I want to say he's like a salvager, but I don't know. Like, but his grandfather tearing up when he's like talking about like, you know, he's like, oh my, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you got your captain's license like already? Just like, oh, that was so sweet.
So for someone who hasn't dealt with depression, which I can't imagine, there's like different levels to it. You can have a day where you just don't feel like doing anything except just plopping in front of the TV all day. And then you have days where the depression is so bad you're just like in physical pain. And you just can't see any hope of escaping. It's not just depression. There's levels.
Well, and not to mention, like, there's people that are like, well, why don't you just snap out of it? Yes. Like, okay, sure, I'm just going to, like, clip my fingers and, like,
somehow snap out of these 20 years of bipolar disorder. It's just going to go away. Yeah, why didn't I think of that sooner?
This is, like, your brain being wired. Like, you can't just, like, you know, clap your hands and, like, bam, I'm this, like, normal fucking functioning person. Like, it's not that easy. And if it were, then nobody would fucking be depressed.
I mean, my husband and I have been together 10 years, and he'll be like, what's wrong? And he still, in his head, is like, oh, why am I even asking? Like, you don't know.
No.
Like, yeah, I have no idea.
No. Well, and mine is, like, you just have to make a conscious effort to, like, work through it and, like, be beyond that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, like, I'll just, like, make an effort to be happy, like, because it's that fucking simple.
Why did I think of it?
Yeah, like, fucking...
decades ago.
20 years of, like, crying for no reason, and all I had to do was just be like, oh, I can be normal. Like, if I could... And, like, Conrad even said himself, like, he felt like he was, like, his brain was different, and that's the case. Like, it's not like a simple, like, you could just, like, will yourself to be better. It's like a cancer. You can't just, like, say, okay, I'm not gonna have cancer anymore. You fucking, like, you have to have the certain medication,
and even
or
then, it's
something.
A toss of a coin if you're gonna have a good day or a bad day.
Exactly. It's the wiring of your brain, and you literally cannot fix that on your own just by wanting it. If you could, it wouldn't be a fucking huge issue. Like, it just, like, I'm like, for fuck's sake.
Whew. Take a deep breath. I'm not arguing with you. You're yelling at me.
I know.
So I guess they met in Florida at a country club.
Yeah, it was some kind of, like, they were
yada yada.
Yeah, it was like they were at, what is it, grandparents, and they were also at their grandparents or something.
It's insane to meet another state and end up only living like 45 minutes away from each other. Like, what are the chances?
Yeah. But then also still, like, never really.
Oh, here we go. Conrad's aunt introduced the two to each other, and then they went on a bike ride to a beach, which is apparently where she fell in love with him. Ha ha ha. Because that's one of the shitty things about reading teenage text messages. Ha ha ha. Ha,
LOL.
Ha ha. Ha. Everything's so fucking funny.
Oh my God.
So her lawyers want this indictment to be thrown out because she didn't do anything criminal. Yeah, she totally told this guy to kill himself, but how is that on her? That's like telling someone to go rob a bank and giving them all the info on how to do it and then saying they shouldn't be on trial.
But then if they do it, then it's not their fault.
If that was the case, why did Charles Manson go to prison for so long?
Well, and that's like when they were talking about, they were like, well, if someone solicits you to commit a murder and you commit that murder, like, isn't that a crime? And he's like, well, that's totally different. It's like, no, it's not. She told him to kill himself. He killed himself. How is that not a crime? So, yeah, it's not like she just told him once, oh my God, you should totally kill yourself. This was many, many messages over a long period of time. So fucking pushy. If it had just been like a casual, like, yeah, you know, whatever, go ahead and kill yourself or whatever. But she was like negging him.
Yeah. Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? What is your plan? When are you going to do it?
And honestly, I feel like at some of those points where she was pushing it, he was having an okay time. He wasn't at a point where he wanted to kill himself. Like, she really did. I have to agree. I don't think he would have done it if she hadn't been fucking antagonizing him.
Like, involuntary manslaughter is absolutely what she should be charged with. So I feel like like this girl.
No, I feel like she should have gotten more than she did. And I fucking hate her attorney who's like, she didn't commit a crime in the state of Massachusetts. It's like, fuck you. Like, yeah. If this had been your child that she was like pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, like, she was supposed to love him. And instead she's like, go ahead and fucking kill yourself. You're not going to be happy. So just do it.
Yeah, her lawyer's like, Massachusetts doesn't have any law in the book about talking someone into suicide, and these judges are deciding. And the one judge is obviously annoyed that his time is even being wasted. His response to this is, but we do have an involuntary manslaughter statute which talks about wanton and reckless conduct resulting in the death, causing the death of someone. Which is what you've done. Yeah. And the Supreme Judicial Court upholds the indictment. June 5th, 2017, in Taunton, Massachusetts, she goes on trial in juvenile court.
Which, like, come on, man. She's not a 12-year-old who's, like, been bullying someone at school and, like, they've, like, you know, killed themselves. Like, she's a fucking adult, basically.
Wasn't she 17 when it happened?
Yeah, like, she was 17. That is a fucking adult.
It was, like, she was, like, a month or two before she turned 18. Like, it was very close.
Yeah, like, I have a hard time when, like, people try children as adults when it's, like, you know, like, they're, like, 12 or 13 or whatever, and they get tried as adults. Like, it's like, kind of touch and go. But, like, when you're fucking 17, almost 18, you're at a point in your life where you need to be making decisions for yourself. You're going to be going off to college. In fact, a lot of, like, 17-year-olds are, like, headed off towards college. Like, she is an adult. Yeah. And she should have been charged as an adult. Yeah.
I think she was, but they still held it in juvenile court. It was weird.
Just the whole case feels like an injustice.
Fun when you're white. I love the writer for Esquire, Jesse Barron, when he's talking about all the media people waiting outside the courthouse and going, is that her? I'm like, oh, you mean the chick with the giant forehead and angry looking eyebrows? Yeah, she's hard to miss. And
her eyebrows, they look
so angry.
It reminds me of, like, the one episode of Worst Roommate Ever when she's like, I have a hard time with people with, like, really thick eyebrows.
And she's asking the judge to determine her case, which is smart. I can't imagine regular people hearing this case and not sentencing her to the max.
Her attorney suggested she do it in front of the judge instead of a jury because the jury would have been like, sympathetic towards
Fried
him.
her. Yeah.
Exactly. And he's like, the judge is going to know that there isn't like
They're
a
not
crime.
going to base on emotions.
Right. They're going to base it on emotions, and they're going to base it on the like laws and blah, blah, blah. And so he pushed her towards like going towards the judge instead of a jury. Because like, he's right. If the jury heard all of this information, like fucking fry her.
Yeah. The first witness, the prostitution.
The prostitution.
Prosecution calls is Conrad's mom. Fuck. Like, you're going hard right away on emotions.
I felt so bad for her because, like, God, that point when she's like, I told him that, like, you know, if you're happy, I'm happy. Basically, like, I live for you and that whole thing. Because, like, I actually cried at that point because, like, fuck, like, my kids are my life. Like, if I lost my children, I would not be able to go on. Like, it just, oh God, it kills me.
When she's asked to identify Michelle in the court, she takes a long pause, and I was waiting for her to go, I don't know, she's wearing a stupid face. Like, Michelle just, she looks like she wants to be anywhere else. Like,
yeah, like, and that's, oh my God, like, you are literally, like, your boyfriend is like, fucking
this is an annoyance for her.
Her
to have to be there.
whole facial expression, all of her expressions, I just wanted to fucking punch her. I really did.
So, who is Michelle? She's from a small town called Plainville with a population of 8,000. She's polite and, quote, someone who adults felt respected by. The fuck does that mean? What adult is going to feel respected by any kid?
She didn't feel back-talked, or I don't know.
No, she's a skinny white girl from a suburb of Boston filled with other white people. And she's just described as a sweet, caring girl, so clearly fucking psychopath, because an hour after Conrad's death, she's texting his sister like, oh, do you know where your brother is? I can't get a hold of him.
And she knew the whole goddamn time. She knew. I just want to fucking like smack her in the face.
Even the next day, she's asking if they found him and is there anything I can do to help. Like,
I'll be here for you guys. And like, she is a fucking psychopath.
Like, it's so horrendous. And then once he's found, with no help from her, she asked if it's going to be a closed casket.
Which, what the fuck?
And once finding out he was cremated, asked for some of his ashes.
If that wouldn't be too much to ask.
Fucking gross.
She disgusts me so much. Like, I'm fucking, like I said, she's a psychopath. She reminds me of like some kind of Dexter shit where she's trying to like fake emotions like she sees on TV or some shit. She's sick.
They have a couple of girls from high school on the stand who talk about how she didn't really seem to have friends outside of school. She's
this is embarrassing.
Very needy.
This
oh
is
my
embarrassing.
God. Yeah.
But also, I kind of like, I was like, oh God, was that me? Like,
I don't want to be described as needy.
Like, 'cause I can be needy, but it's just like, it's not like to the extent that I would like fabricate things in my life.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I want to be like, hey, do you want to hang out and that kind of stuff? But like, I like, that was my one moment where I was like, oh my God, am I Michelle?
Like, I wish they got into like why they didn't want a friendship out of school. Like, it might show more of what like her personality was like.
It seemed like she was very like possessive and like weird. I don't know, because like I'm weird and I'm like needy in some situations, but like at the same time I've gotten to a point where like now I'm in my 30s and I'm like, I don't have fucking time for that.
Yeah.
And so therefore they probably don't have time for that either.
Yeah.
And I feel like she just like was at that point where like she just was desperate for friends and she would do anything for them.
2 days before his death, Michelle is texting friends saying Conrad is missing and getting attention for it. Almost like a dry run. You get this much attention for a missing boyfriend. Imagine what you could get for a dead one. The whole story just makes me feel icky.
I was dying of like secondhand embarrassment. It was like watching American Idol like auditions or whatever, when like they were like all these girls are getting on the stand and like talking about how they're like, and would you consider her a friend outside of school? And they were all just like, no.
And reading over the text messages.
It was seriously like secondhand embarrassment. I was like, oh my God, this girl should probably kill herself.
Yeah, and while she's texting to these girls, she's also texting Conrad.
Yeah, she's like, my boyfriend's missing and I'm really worried about him. But
and
also
helping
I'm
him plan his suicide.
She
like,
is fucking psychotic.
Oh my God.
And I am going to go on record now saying that like the psychologist or whatever the guy was that was like defending her.
I hated that guy.
He is a fucking cocksucker, and I hope that he's a miserable old man by himself.
So once he's dead, she can text them and ask to hang out to get her mind off things. And how do you say no to somebody who just lost their boyfriend?
Seriously, they're not going to say no to that shit. And when they're like, when the, you know, his attorney's like, and would you normally do that? And she's like, no, but you know, like I felt bad because he was dead and she was sad.
Yes. Like, and she's posting all these updates on Facebook about how sad she is and blah, blah, blah. For attention. She's starting to sound like someone I know very well. My mother. And then I gotta cut that out.
I don't know. Did she listen?
Probably not.
Oh, but my own husband had to ask me earlier today what the name of my podcast is because
my husband's a dick.
Because my husband's a dick.
Podcast.
We can keep that in. Because he doesn't listen. Like an unsupportive asshole.
He lets you leave the house. You're getting a little greedy.
He better start giving me fucking money.
Oh my God. See, this is what happens when we go 2 weeks without seeing each other.
I know. It's been too long. And we're all inebriated.
Yeah. We're on that high watching Love after lockup, and God, we're a nightmare. We still have another one to do. Oh my God!
If we had watched Love Is Blind, like we would have been like even worse.
So then she puts on a charity event in Conrad's honor to raise money for mental health awareness, which sounds fine if she wasn't the cause of his death. Yeah. And it's not even in his hometown; it's hers.
Which is so weird. And because like his friend
didn't know how to organize it in a town she's not from.
He was an hour away. Like, it's not a fucking another country. So and his own friend is like, but like none of his friends and family live there. And
she has a way to message his friends and family and yet doesn't know how to organize it.
When she's like, you're not trying to take all the credit for this.
Yeah, it makes like, no sense.
What the fuck, bitch? Like, what's wrong with you?
But my thing is, okay, so you know how to contact his family and friends, but you didn't bother to tell him he was suicidal?
No, because that would take away all the fun.
Yeah, she's horrible. Also, she wore fucking red pants to her trial where she's being charged with murder. Who okayed that outfit? Everybody knows you wear blue for honesty. You don't wear red. Also, you could stand to look fucking sad occasionally. God. She always looked put out. Yeah, like she's just so bothered. Her fucking facial expressions. And then the talking heads go on about how women are evil and can talk men into doing witches trial and all this. A load of shit. I can't get any of these assholes to take out the trash. But we're real convincing. Yeah. God. She has a specific trait and just happens to be a girl. It has nothing to do with all women. Go fuck yourself. Seriously. Like, and if it was a boy pushing a girl to suicide, we'd be feeling the same exact way. Not all men. Yeah. They also talk about how she had an eating disorder, which I can't relate to. And how she also suffered from depression. That I can't relate to. Oh, I can relate to both, but I also didn't try and get anyone to kill themselves when I had an eating disorder. See, I didn't want to ask you because I was worried you would say you try to get people to kill themselves. Didn't want to make you look bad. It was like I feel like it's actually like the second sign of an eating disorder is like you try and get someone to kill themselves. Like it's like you don't want to eat or you're like I didn't remember seeing
Purging?
that on that Lifetime movie with the pink Power Ranger who was bulimic. I didn't remember seeing her do that. So
Oh man, that was a classic.
Do you remember
though.
that one?
I do. Man,
that was a good one.
that was a good one. I feel like eating disorders was a very like 90s, early 2000s thing. Like, it's not really a thing now. I mean, it's a thing, but we don't talk about it anymore. It's a thing. We just don't talk about it.
But reading the text she sends to her friends, I'm just not sure how severe her depression is, because it's just all screaming for attention. She is just so needy.
Yeah, she's just like fucking psycho.
I couldn't deal with it. I love the friend Olivia who texts, "Teenagers suck and we're busy. You're lucky if you leave high school with 3 good friends." Like,
which is
she gets
accurate.
it. Yeah, she gets it.
It is the truth.
And then fuck this lawyer who's like, these girls abandoned her at the trial and are painting a different picture of her. This trial became more about Michelle and less about Conrad. One,
it's about Michelle.
Michelle painted that picture herself through text messages and no one wanted to be her friend and hang out with her outside of school. And 2, she's on fucking trial. Of course it's about her.
Yeah, Conrad's not on trial. This is about her.
It's your job to put the blame on Conrad. So after the prosecution rests, defense files a motion for a finding of not guilty, which is typical defense attorney shit that, of course, the judge denies. They keep showing us some of the messages she and him sent to each other, and the worst one I think by far is her asking him if he was going to do a last tweet, and can it be about her?
I died.
Lock her up forever. You out of your fucking mind.
I don't know though, like that whole like I want you to be my first, like you're my first love and I want you to be my last or whatever.
That was the second episode. We'll get to it.
Okay, but like that was the worst.
Literally, the second episode is covering the latter part of the trial. So the defense is claiming that Conrad was abusive by putting all of his depression and suicidal thoughts onto her and
That's a fucking relationship.
Telling her that he wouldn't love her anymore if she told his mom. So you don't want to lose your boyfriend by telling his mom about being suicidal.
But you're cool with him dying.
Yeah. Like, I know teenagers are fucking stupid, but come on.
They're not that stupid.
They're also treating her like she's 13 when she's, like, literally just shy of 18. Like, we covered before, I think her birthday was, like, 2 months away or something.
Yeah, like, she's a fucking grown-ass person.
So, as far as common sense go, that's a pretty big difference.
I gotta be real, though. Like, my 11-year-old has come to me and been like, hey, I'm really worried about, like, so-and-so because, like, they were talking about, like, hurting themselves and blah, blah, blah. And I, like, went to the school or, like, counselor or whatever with that information. And, like, that, like, if you can do that fucking shit at 11, you can do that shit at 17. Like,
yeah, he has a history of suicide attempts, so of course he's going to eventually be successful. And it's not her fault, it's the antidepressants. Mm-hmm. She didn't know that helping him was a bad thing because involuntary intoxication for her medication. Like,
that's fucking bullshit. And I like how that one psychiatrist is like, that's not even a diagnosis that we ever use.
If that was the case, why didn't she tell anybody where he was?
Or why did she pretend like he was missing when she was talking to her that whole time?
Like, why did she try to throw the blame off herself by texting him and acting like he was still alive? Like, oh my God. They show texts from that day leading up to his death and even mentioned Conrad calling Michelle at 6:28 p.m. and talking to her for 43 minutes. It's one thing to exchange texts with somebody, but to actually listen to their voice and hear their pain.
And they are dying.
And still encourage them to go through with it. Like, I feel like I say it a lot, but fuck this bitch. And then she calls him back and they talk for an additional 47 minutes. So an hour and a half total. Who knows exactly what was said during that time? Like, I can't imagine. We do see the text, which probably sealed her fate.
Mm-hmm.
She had texted her friend Sam saying that Conrad had gotten out of his truck at one point and she told him to get back in. So I don't understand any defenders she has. He was changing his mind, and she told him to get back in and finish the job.
Fucking psycho.
They talk a little more about their relationship, which is an odd one. I get that they're teenagers, but we at least know he has a truck, and yet they've only met in person a handful of times and live less than an hour away from each other.
I've got the feeling that their whole relationship was just kind of like...
just lived through text messages.
Right. Well, like, it wasn't even like a real relationship. It was like one of those kind of like, oh, we're dating, but like, it was just kind of like an emotional one.
Yeah. So the talking heads are trying to say maybe she has no problem with him dying because she didn't really comprehend that this was a real person behind those text messages.
Oh, please. This is like, in this generation...
I can kind of understand, like, not really having connection with somebody.
In this generation, like, everything being through text, like, we have adapted and we understand that, like, even through text.
Yeah, but
like,
teenagers are stupid.
God, they're so stupid.
But again, when you're listening to their actual voice and still telling them to die, I can't agree with that.
No. And she's, like, been doing this over a sustained period of time. Like,
yeah. And then we get the awkward moment where she asks if he thinks they'll ever get married, and he doesn't answer her and instead says, something up? Damn.
Which is
That's
also
tough.
like, but can we talk about the fact that like she's asking if like he thinks that they're gonna get married, and like she's like, I know you're gonna kill yourself, but like, do you think you want to get married?
Answer her.
Yeah, and he's like, is something wrong with you?
He doesn't answer the question. We learned Michelle was a huge fan of Glee, possibly the most cursed show ever. A lot of people have died from that show, and it's not a show from like the 70s.
I have never watched a single episode of Glee, but after seeing this, I'm like, I don't think I ever could.
The first season, I was like, this isn't for me.
It kind of made me think that it's probably a lot like Degrassi.
And I'm somebody who loves Riverdale and watches Riverdale, and Glee was too much for me.
But also, like, again, secondhand embarrassment for this poor girl, like, going through, like...
She loves to use lines from that show in text messages. Like, she just does not have an original thought in her brain.
So embarrassing for me.
She's a huge fan of Lea Michele, obviously before the accusations of racism and bullying, and connected with her so much from the show that she's trying to replicate what happened to Corey Monteith.
Literally trying to be her, which is fucking weird.
So if you don't know, Glee was a television show about a fictional high school choir and featured a couple played by Lea Michele and Corey Monteith that also happened off screen.
Yes, they dated in real life.
He died in real life, and they also portrayed his death on the show. And Michelle is using lines from Lea Michele from the show and also lines from real interviews she did. It's creepy.
Yeah,
like, describing the death of her boyfriend is...
Oh, like when she's like talking about how like she felt like the luckiest girl. I'm just like, gag. Like, I have been a big fan of things throughout my life, but I've never like pushed them into my life to make it like a thing. It's just like, how can you plagiarize someone's grief?
Yeah, it's gross. The journalist also tells us about a relationship with a girl named Alice that Michelle had. Michelle told other people about how in love she was with this girl, and the journalist meets up with Alice, who basically tells him Michelle's a sociopath and there was never a relationship. So now he has this weird sympathy for Michelle as this loner who fantasizes these relationships.
Like, no, that's something you fucking go to counseling for.
To me, it really feels like, again, she's just making shit up for attention.
Oh, absolutely.
And I definitely agree with Conrad's mom, who says she's not well.
No.
We get some quips from people around town on their beliefs. It's shocking how many people think what she did wasn't illegal. I don't get it.
Oh, that one girl in like the little diner area or whatever, like behind the counter, that she was like, but she didn't commit a crime. It's like, bitch, she fucking did.
Yeah.
Like, all these kids that are like being bullied into suicide, like, that's a fucking crime.
It's shitty not to report when somebody is suicidal, but to tell someone to finish the job when they're backing out of it,
that's a fucking crime.
Like, how is it? Like,
it is manslaughter.
Yeah. So after 2 days of deliberation on June 16th, 2017, the judge finds her guilty, and on August 3rd, she is sentenced to serve 2.5 years with 15 months to be served in prison and giving 5 years of probation.
I liked how he said, like, up until the point where, like, he got out of the truck, like, it was him that was responsible or whatever, but when she urged him to get back in, like, that was on her, and that was manslaughter.
Oh, absolutely. So, she doesn't have to go to prison straight away.
I was so mad about that.
She files appeals and all that, and after the appeals, she's forced to begin her sentence on February 11th, 2019, and due to good behavior, she was released January 23rd, 2020. She didn't even serve a year, and she could have faced up to 20.
I liked that one guy that was like, my wife and I have different opinions, of course, and blah, 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 and he was like, his wife didn't think that, like, she committed a crime, and he did, or something, whatever, but then at the end, he was like, all I know is I wouldn't want to be your next boyfriend.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, shit. That's true.
So, I had some questions for this doctor who is, like, defending her. Like,
this, like, fucking like intoxication or whatever.
It feels like he's got his doctorate from, like, a diploma mill, but he also mentions how he brings up this case to strangers at an airport to get their take on it.
And he'll be like, did you know she didn't even text him?
Don't bother strangers at the airport.
But also, don't fucking lie to them about your BS. Like, did you know she didn't even tell him to get back in the car? Blah, 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 blah. Or his whole, like, well, she also told people that he raped her. Like, if we're going to believe her word, like, are we not going to believe that as well? It's like, this bitch made up every fucking thing that she possibly could to get attention. Do you not for 1 second think that, like, she also convinced her boyfriend to go ahead? For attention? Like, no. She made up this bullshit about fucking, like, him raping her or whatever so that she could get attention for that. And, like, oh my God. I just, like, it made me so mad. It made me so mad.
But don't bother strangers at the airport. Like, that and the gynecologist, you don't bother people.
And don't lie to them. Did you know that she never actually said in text messages to get back in the car? It's like, okay,
that
what
doesn't mean she didn't tell him over the phone
or, like, convince him repeatedly how to kill himself, like swallow bleach, take Tylenol.
So the defense and this doctor are like, it's amazing she was found guilty when there's no recording of her actually telling him to get in the truck. And I didn't read over the entire court transcript, but why wouldn't their defense be she made this whole thing up for attention? Like, you could easily say, no, she texted that girl that, but she never told him. He just happened to do it. She was begging him not to do it. That's why they kept calling each other.
Despite all the texts where she was saying to do it, when it came down to the last second and she was on the phone with him, like, which are we supposed to believe? That she told him, don't do it. I love you, and, like, it'll get better.
I mean,
or
any sort of defense instead of, no, this wasn't a crime.
Oh. They're like,
that's your defense?
She did it, but it's not a crime.
Yes. Like, just lie and say, it was on the phone. It wasn't recorded. You could easily say, oh, no, that text she sent the girl was just for attention. She never told him to get back in.
It was like survivor's guilt.
Like, God. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't line up. It wouldn't line up with her actions afterwards, but I mean,
or like her text messages beforehand or any of that.
But,
like,
yeah, that's the end of this documentary. There's a Lifetime movie entitled Conrad Michelle, If Words Could Kill. A Dateline episode titled, you want to take a guess? It's Reckless. Because she's reckless.
She's pretty fucking reckless.
And on March 29th, the Girl from Plainville series will premiere on Hulu, starring podcast favorite Elle Fanning as Michelle.
I do love Elle Fanning.
We love Elle Fanning. Watch The Great, which can also be found on Hulu.
Such a great show. But also, like, fuck Michelle.
Yes. I love that Elle Fanning had to put, like, a prosthetic to get the forehead right. It is creepy how much she looks like her with all the makeup and stuff.
Oh, yeah. No,
it's
crazy.
Well, yeah, that's the end of this week.
And I think that Heather and I both can agree that this bitch committed a crime.
Oh, definitely.
And that if you come to a point where you know someone is in a bad place and they are contemplating suicide, like,
fucking tell someone.
it is your responsibility to tell
God.
someone. Like, you could be saving someone's life. And if you don't, then you're fucking sick.
Yeah. So thanks for listening.
Bye!
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Doc to Me. The opening music is by Twisterium. For comments or suggestions, we can be reached by email at doctomepod@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at doctomepod and find a link to our Facebook group in the show notes. Thank you.